Chapter 391. The True Trump Card. Boom. The instant the small sword left his palm, Xiao Chen heard the sound of the mountain shattering. From the middle of the 1,000-meter tall mountain to its top, it had completely shattered. Rumble. However, that was not the end of it. Countless cracks appeared on the remaining bottom half as numerous rocks rolled down. After a while, the bottom half of the mountain shattered as well. The miniature sword had reduced a 1,000-meter tall mountain to flatland. Xiao Chen looked dumbfounded as he watched. He did not expect the miniature sword to have so much power. He muttered, "This is the might of a medial-grade secret weapon." When caught off guard, it could even kill half-step martial monarchs instantly. The miniature sword whistled as it flew back. The light previously on it was now dim, and it appeared somewhat illusory as it flew back into Xiao Chen's palm. A weak trace of essence flowed in Xiao Chen's body and gathered at his palm, slowly charging this miniature sword. It looked like it would be impossible to use that sort of destructive force very quickly. However, given its destructive power, Xiao Chen did not need this miniature sword to be able to attack continuously. This miniature sword can be my true trump card. I should give it a name. I shall call it Palm Sword. As Xiao Chen casually gave this secret treasure a more fitting name, he grinned widely. The might of this palm sword was tremendous. This was the first time Xiao Chen had felt confident in dealing with half-step martial monarchs. He could not help but feel very happy. However, the final secret treasure made Xiao Chen feel a headache manifesting. It was a heavy black helmet. Apparently, it was a defensive medial-grade secret treasure. Xiao Chen felt the weight of the helmet and saw the two horns on it before immediately losing interest. Not mentioning how it looked, merely the weight of it was at least 100 kilograms. Unless one was a heavily armored knight on the battlefield or a barbarian, no one would be interested in this helmet, not even if it possessed strong defensive abilities. Xiao Chen casually tossed the helmet into the universe ring. Then, he investigated the final two items. They were identical. They were glowing pearls. The light of the pearls was neither dim nor bright, it was somewhere in the middle. Xiao Chen felt vast, frightening, and pure essence in them. His intuition told him that, of the burial items, the value of these two pearls was the highest. Even when added together, the value of the secret manuals and secret treasures was lower than these pearls. However, the depressing thing was that Xiao Chen's knowledge was limited. He did not know what they were. He could only toss them to a corner of the universe ring for now. Boom. 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 Just at this moment, in a desolate corner of the Qinren Island, a 3,000 meters tall mountain started shattering. That mountain was massive. As it shattered, it shook, causing the ground to shake along with it. Huge waves appeared on the sea around Qinren Island. Loud sounds rumbled in Xiao Chen's ears. Xiao Chen looked over and saw countless tyrannical fist winds within the dazzling golden light in the distance, shattering the mountain. The tall mountain visibly diminished in size under the torrent of fist winds. First punch, second punch, third punch, fourth punch, 10th punch. After the 10 punches landed, the top half of the 3,000-meter tall mountain was left bare. After the light faded, Yu Chenxi slowly appeared and landed firmly on the ground. Xiao Chen had used a secret treasure before he could level a mountain. However, the other party used her own tyrannical strength to blast away half the mountain. What a huge gap. When Xiao Chen thought about it, Yu Chenxi was not the top genius of the continent either. She only ranked in the top 50 of the 5-nation youth competition. This caused some fear in Xiao Chen's heart. Yu Chenxi was already this strong. In that case, how strong were the top 10 geniuses? Xiao Chen withdrew his gaze. His eyes revealed that he was deep in thought. He said softly, "It is about a year to the next 5-nation youth competition. I should go and take a look if I have the time. Xiao Chen had never doubted his talent, he did not think that it was less than the others. All he lacked was time. Compared to those peak geniuses, Xiao Chen had started much later. Even working so hard to catch up, they were still a distance away. It would not be surprising for Yu Chenxi to break through to superior grade martial king after she obtained the daybreak flower. Furthermore, this Yu Chenxi was younger than Xiao Chen. Given Yu Chenxi's cultivation, the other geniuses should either be peak superior grade martial kings or half-step martial monarchs. I have to advance to martial king quickly. Xiao Chen felt a certain urgent feeling in his heart. This fortuitous encounter on the Qinren Island is a good opportunity for me to catch up to them. After Xiao Chen gave Xiaobai some instructions, he looked for a desolate area on the island. He planned to undergo true closed-door cultivation. Xiao Chen took out all the spirit herbs that increased cultivation and counted them. There was a total of 28 stalks of such spirit medicine above 500 years old. Xiao Chen was not in a rush to consume these spirit herbs. Instead, he continued to solidify his cultivation as a superior grade martial saint, nourishing the qi whirlpool in his dantian and building a proper dam to defend against the floodwaters. After cultivating for 7 days, Xiao Chen suddenly opened his eyes. His cultivation as a superior grade martial saint was firm, and the purple qi whirlpool had become very resilient. The qi whirlpool should be able to withstand it already. It is time to take those spirit herbs for increasing cultivation. Xiao Chen breathed, and he picked out a 500-year-old snow ginseng from the pile of spirit herbs. If Xiao Chen could completely absorb the medicinal energy of the 500-year-old snow ginseng, in theory, he would gain 10 years' worth of cultivation. However, few people knew the correct way to consume the snow ginseng. It was hard to contain all the medicinal energy in the process. Hence, it was already pretty impressive for most people to get 6 or 7 years out of the possible 10. Achieving 8 years was pretty much the peak, and receiving 9 years was like a miracle. However, there were detailed records of these spirit herbs in the Compendium of Cultivation. So Xiao Chen knew the proper way to consume the snow ginseng. Xiao Chen observed the snow ginseng in his hand and compared it to regular ginseng. A layer of frost covered the snow ginseng's exterior. When Xiao Chen held it in his hand, he could feel a bone-chilling sensation. Furthermore, it was much larger than regular ginseng. Xiao Chen held the snow ginseng with one hand and warmed it slightly, melting the frost and permeating into the snow ginseng. This frost was the essence of the snow ginseng. Most people were unaware of this and lost the majority of the medicinal energy. Finally, Xiao Chen infused his essence into the snow ginseng, warming the inside and the frost liquid as he mixed them. Xiao Chen's actions were very gentle and careful. If he injured the snow ginseng's skin, all its medicinal energy would go to waste. 10 minutes later, the insides of the snow ginseng completely melted. When looking at it, it looked like a bag of snow ginseng skin filled with liquid. It was bloated and soft. Xiao Chen opened his mouth and placed the snow ginseng on his tongue. Then, he used his teeth to break a small hole in the skin gently. Kai. When the liquid that filled the snow ginseng found an exit, it immediately gushed out, entering Xiao Chen's mouth. The medicinal liquid was very cool. A fragrance assaulted the nose. It smelled very good. The fragrance filled Xiao Chen's senses. He absorbed all of the medicinal energy without wasting a drop. Boom. The surging medicinal energy from the 500-year-old herb flowed down his throat and poured into his body like an endlessly gushing river, moving around in his meridians. The medicinal energy saturated the narrow meridians. As the medicinal energy flowed, there was a slight pain. Xiao Chen clenched his teeth and withstood the pain. Fortunately, Xiao Chen's physical body cultivated the dragon tendon tiger bone to small perfection. As a result, his meridians were stronger than regular cultivators. If other cultivators consumed this, they would not dare consume it in the same way that Xiao Chen had. If they swallowed it in one breath, there was a possibility that they would explode and die. After the vast medicinal strength circulated once in the meridians, the energy grew even more ferocious. Finally, it headed for the purple Qi whirlpool in the Dantian. Bang! Bang! The Qi whirlpool was like a dam that finally welcomed a ferocious flood. When the flood crashed into it, a dull sound came from Xiao Chen's body. Under this intense barrage, Xiao Chen's internal organs trembled. His complexion paled as he felt intense pain. The vast medicinal energy crashed relentlessly into the purple Qi whirlpool. The resilient Qi whirlpool seemed like it could collapse at any moment. Although Xiao Chen had expected the medicinal energy to be strong, when he executed the plan, the medicinal energy of the 500-year-old snow ginseng far exceeded his expectations. The medicinal energy completely filled the inner space of the Qi whirlpool. Furthermore, there was still plenty of medicinal energy pouring in from outside. This situation was dire. If Xiao Chen could not digest this medicinal energy soon, his Qi whirlpool might bloat until it burst. Xiao Chen maintained his calm and slowly circulated the purple thunder divine incantation. With a thought, the Qi whirlpool spun slowly. Although the speed of the Qi whirlpool was not fast, at least it moved. Instantly, the Qi whirlpool absorbed a large amount of medicinal energy, making it more resilient. Shoo! Shoo! As the Qi whirlpool absorbed more medicinal energy, it spun increasingly faster. Eventually, it was as fast as when he normally cultivated. At this moment, Xiao Chen heaved a sigh of relief. His previous efforts had not gone to waste. Otherwise, when the medicinal energy crashed into his Qi whirlpool, it would have collapsed instantly. As the Qi whirlpool spun faster, the rate of absorption of the medicinal energy increased. Xiao Chen clearly felt his strength increasing. All the pores of Xiao Chen's body opened as a huge energy filled his body. Even his blood could not help but surge. After consuming a 500-year-old snow ginseng, it could advance cultivation by 10 years. It would be impossible to digest all the medicinal energy in one breath. Eventually, everything calmed down. Xiao Chen slowed the rate of absorption. The key was to maintain stability. The faster the cultivation realm rose, the more stable it had to be. After 7 days, Xiao Chen had completely digested the medicinal energy of the snow ginseng. Xiao Chen opened his eyes, and 2 beams of purple light fired out. His black pupils appeared even deeper, even more unfathomable. Xiao Chen tossed aside the snow ginseng skin in his hand and took out another 500-year-old spirit herb. He muttered, "This is the 100 spirit fruit. Its effects are weaker than the snow ginseng. It can only raise 5 years' worth of cultivation. However, that is still pretty valuable." After Xiao Chen consumed the snow ginseng, his Qi whirlpool had enlarged significantly. The amount of essence that it could contain had increased by half. Furthermore, with the experience from the previous attempt, the digestion of his 100 spirit fruit was not as dangerous as the earlier attempt. 2 days later, Xiao Chen completely absorbed the medicinal energy. Throughout the following month, Xiao Chen continued consuming natural treasures that increased his cultivation. The quantity of essence in his body had increased to a horrifying level. Xiao Chen's current quantity of essence was comparable to that of a medial-grade martial king. If he completely consumed all of the spirit herbs, his quantity of essence would surpass that of a medial-grade martial king, comparable to a superior-grade martial king. After a month had passed, Xiao Chen held the final 500-year-old spirit herb in his hand. He frowned slightly, speaking softly to himself. Toward the end, the effects of these spirit fruits have weakened. A spirit herb that could originally advance my cultivation by 10 years cannot achieve 5 now. This was the problem of building a resistance to spirit herbs. Xiao Chen had experienced this before in the underground world. Because he had consumed too many spirit herbs, he gained a significant resistance to them. Unless Xiao Chen found spirit herbs older than 1,000 years, it would be difficult to use this method for raising his cultivation sharply. Spirit herbs under 1,000 years in age were no longer very useful to him. Xiao Chen collected his thoughts and smiled faintly. I should be satisfied with this already. As of now, my quantity of essence can compare to that of a superior grade martial king. Once I become a martial king, the quality of my essence will increase again. At that time, those experienced martial kings will not have much of an advantage over me. Xiao Chen only used half a day to digest the final spirit herb. After another week, with the support of his vast essence, Xiao Chen advanced to peak superior grade martial saint without any obstructions. After Xiao Chen's cultivation rose, the amount of open minor meridians in his body increased. He only needed to open 2 more minor meridians to cultivate the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation's 6th layer. It was time for Xiao Chen to open those 2 meridians. He needed to cultivate the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation's 6th layer, advancing both his cultivation realm and cultivation technique. When cultivators attempted to overcome a major hurdle, they would normally spend a long time doing so. Not only did they need sufficient essence, but they also required some opportune moments. Without these opportune moments, it would be impossible to advance to martial king. Lu Ruyu had once told Xiao Chen about her experiences when advancing to martial king. Thus, the importance of the opportune moment was deeply ingrained into Xiao Chen. Fortunately, he had the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation. Advancing to the 6th layer could count as an opportune moment. 2 days after advancing to peak martial king, Xiao Chen was ready to try forcefully opening the 2 minor meridians. The pure and vast lightning attributed energy circulated in Xiao Chen's 9 major meridians for a small cycle. Then, it slowly flowed through the numerous minor meridians for a great cycle. After that, Xiao Chen was not in a rush to send this essence back to the Dantian. He stopped the essence in the middle of one of the major meridians. Many minor meridians surrounded this major meridian like the branches on a tree trunk. Xiao Chen looked for the closed minor meridian that he needed. Then, he sharpened his essence until it was like a nail and pierced the minor meridian slowly. See. The minor meridian only opened slightly, and Xiao Chen immediately felt a heart-wrenching pain. He sharply inhaled a mouthful of cold air. However, Xiao Chen did not stop his actions. Pain was to be expected when forcefully opening the minor meridians. Xiao Chen had prepared for this long ago. The minor meridian opened little by little. The intense pain caused veins to bulge on his forehead as sweat rolled down relentlessly. After working hard for a night, this minor meridian finally opened by a 10th. After resting a while, he resumed opening the minor meridian. Xiao Chen did not have too much time. Compared to the other genius cultivators, he had started much later. Those people had already left Xiao Chen in their dust. Compared to others, Xiao Chen needed time the most. The harvest from this fortuitous encounter managed to close the gap slightly. After all, those genius cultivators mostly had great sects backing them. They did not lack pills, herbs, or treasures. No matter how painful, how difficult, or how dangerous it was, Xiao Chen had to persevere. He could not afford to be lazy. After half a month, after plenty of hard work, Xiao Chen finally opened these 2 minor meridians completely. The new minor meridians were too fragile, essence could not flow through them. So, he could not use them to cultivate. However, Xiao Chen had prepared long ago. He picked many quality spirit herbs for nourishing the meridians. After another 7 days, with the nourishment of the spirit herbs, Xiao Chen's newly opened minor meridians were as stable as his other meridians. He could use them for cultivation now. A large, round moon hung high in the sky, sending down a gentle light. Xiao Chen slowly got up from the rock. He gazed the bright moon above before taking out a golden spirit core from the universe ring. This golden spirit core was about the size of a basketball. This was the spirit core of the golden lion king that Xiao Chen once hunted in the savage forest. Xiao Chen felt that he lacked something to advance to martial king until he remembered the spirit core of the golden lion king. Xiao Chen now realized he still lacked a strong external force. When he advanced his purple thunder divine incantation to the 6th layer, he would use the external force in tandem with his essence to break through to martial king in one breath. Xiao Chen held the golden spirit core that had rested in his universe ring for over a year. It was finally time to use it. Advancing from superior grade martial saint to martial king within 3 months was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. This was something no one dared to think about. However, Xiao Chen wished to gamble on it. He felt the pure energy of the golden spirit core and said, "After preparing for 2 months, I consumed spirit herbs that have increased my cultivation with great risk, spent a lot of effort, and suffered to open the minor meridians, all for this day." Xiao Chen could only succeed. He could not afford to fail. Compared to those with the backing of a sect, those peak geniuses, he did not have the resources to waste on failure. The moment he failed, he would lose the opportunity to catch up. The full moon was perfectly round, the night was dark and silent. Xiao Chen searched for a place where the spiritual energy was relatively dense. Then, he sat down cross-legged on a rock. Xiao Chen crisscrossed his fingers with his palm facing up. The basketball-sized golden core floated quietly above his palm. The spiritual energy of the spirit core drifted out but did not scatter. Xiao Chen directed it with his spiritual sense. Xiao Chen took a deep breath before exhaling a white gas. Even after a long time, this gas did not scatter. Success or failure would depend on his move. Once everything was ready, Xiao Chen closed his eyes. The immense qi whirlpool in Xiao Chen's dantian spun rapidly. Then, he quietly used the circulation method for the purple thunder divine incantation's 6th layer. The surrounding lightning attributed spiritual energy rushed into Xiao Chen's body, forming a whirlpool outside the body as it did so. It went through the pores of his skin and flowed into his meridian, eventually reaching the dantian. Ti-da. Ti-da. Lightning attributed essence liquid quickly formed, dripping from the purple qi whirlpool. Soon, lightning attributed energy filled the purple qi whirlpool. This was the first step of cultivating the purple thunder divine incantation. Xiao Chen had to absorb the surrounding lightning attributed spiritual energy and deposit it all in this dantian. However, it did not stop there. Xiao Chen had to refine it continuously, turning the spiritual energy into the purer essence. The purple liquid in the qi whirlpool also spun madly with the qi whirlpool. Now, Xiao Chen used the method from the purple thunder divine incantation's 6th layer to refine the spiritual energy. Hence, it was much faster than before. Kai. Kai. As the qi whirlpool spun, the countless arcs of electricity appeared in the surrounding air, crackling restlessly. In the dark night, it looked like tiny lightning bolts streaking across, illuminating Xiao Chen's face with a purple light. Boom. Suddenly, both the whirlpool, inside and outside the body, stopped spinning. The purple liquid in the inner whirlpool exploded, and its color grew deeper. However, its volume decreased significantly. Originally, that essence could fill the entire qi whirlpool, but now, it only filled it slightly. The time necessary to refine spiritual energy into essence decreased by half. The purple thunder divine incantation's 6th layer is indeed strong, Xiao Chen thought joyfully. This means I can double my future cultivation speed. However, Xiao Chen had only succeeded in one segment. Following this, he still had to circulate his essence by a small cycle successfully, then a great cycle, before his purple thunder divine incantation could advance to the 6th layer. Xiao Chen took a deep breath and continued to circulate the purple thunder divine incantation. The dense purple liquid surged and flowed into the 9 major meridians. Hu. The pure and dense essence flowed quickly within the 9 major meridians. It was like a wild, galloping horse. Xiao Chen's consciousness could almost not control it. What impressive speed! Xiao Chen was astonished. When the speed increased, it meant that the efficiency of his cultivation would have improved. Anticipation of the purple thunder divine incantation's 6th layer filled Xiao Chen. However, at this moment, Xiao Chen had to be very careful as well. If he lost control of the purple thunder divine incantation, he would fail in his first attempt to break through. Regardless of the situation, Xiao Chen had to complete the small cycle smoothly. The speed increased during the great cycle. If he could not even deal with the small cycle, how could he manage the great cycle? Xiao Chen sank his consciousness down. His will acted like a rope, controlling this wild horse, not letting it get out of control. Finally, Xiao Chen arduously completed a small cycle. Boom, boom, boom. When the essence returned to the Qi whirlpool, both the inner and outer whirlpool started spinning again. A huge electric whirlpool also appeared in the sky. The electric whirlpool did not spin at all, it merely appeared in the night sky. Thunder roared around it and lightning danced across the sky, illuminating the entire Qinren Island. Xiaobai chatted with Yu Chenxi. When they discovered the changes in the sky, their expressions also shifted. Yu Chenxi muttered, "This is a mysterious phenomenon. Only a heaven-ranked cultivation technique will result in a mysterious phenomenon when it advances." Could Xiao Chen be cultivating a heaven-ranked cultivation technique? When Xiaobai saw that electric whirlpool that appeared from nowhere, her cute face revealed a graceful expression. She was no longer the little spirit fox that understood nothing. After Xiaobai succeeded in changing forms, she had started cultivating as well. Great danger would accompany such a large mysterious phenomenon. She could not help but ask worriedly, "Elder sister Yu, will elder brother Xiao Chen be fine? Should we go and take a look?" Yu Chenxi looked at Xiaobai's worried expression. She thought to herself, this Xiao Chen is really lucky. He has such a weird temper, yet this pretty girl follows him unswervingly. "Xiaobai, don't worry. He is at a crucial moment. If we go near, it might have a negative impact. I believe he will succeed," Yu Chenxi said as she smiled gently. When Xiaobai heard this, she nodded her head vigorously. Xiaobai believes in elder brother Xiao Chen. He will definitely succeed. The external mysterious phenomenon did not affect Xiao Chen in the least. He currently focused on the Qi whirlpool inside him. Originally, Xiao Chen's Qi whirlpool was only slightly full with purple liquid. After a small cycle, it increased to half. With the assistance of those spirit herbs, Xiao Chen's capacity for holding essence had become very vast. Now, after a small cycle, it felt like it could fill the Qi whirlpool by half. This excited Xiao Chen. Merely the small cycle is so powerful already. I wonder how strong the great cycle is, Xiao Chen wondered to himself. After that, Xiao Chen controlled his essence to prepare for the great cycle. This was the most crucial moment of this breakthrough. Hu Kai. Hu Kai. The essence in the Qi whirlpool quickly emerged, following the circulation path of the purple thunder divine incantation. It was so fast that Xiao Chen almost could not react to it. If the earlier small cycle was described as a wild, galloping horse, this was like a speeding race car. They were on completely different levels. This is bad. If it continues like this, I will not be able to control the path the essence takes. When that happens, the essence would turn chaotic. Not only will I fail, but it will also cause severe internal injuries. Xiao Chen's expression changed as he thought in horror. This was like giving a person who normally drove a horse carriage a race car. This person was already used to the speed of a horse carriage. When he suddenly changed, it would be hard for him to control the race car's speed. Calm down. I have to calm down. Xiao Chen's strong state of mind came into play once again. This horrified and restless heart calmed quickly. Suddenly, an idea flashed in Xiao Chen's mind. After he calmed down, he finally thought of the method to deal with this. Actually, Xiao Chen had taken the wrong approach from the start. It would be impossible to control this swift essence in an instant. Advancing to the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation's 6th layer was not simply a great hurdle. Xiao Chen believed that no one could control such a change in an instant. Following this train of thought, did that mean that it was impossible to advance to the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation's 6th layer? That obviously was not correct. Xiao Chen did not need control over this swift essence's speed but its direction. He needed to successfully force the essence to flow in the path for the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation's 6th layer, completing a great cycle. Xiao Chen felt enlightened after this realization. Every time this swift essence was about to make a wrong turn, his will would become a gentle force, nudging the essence to the right path. Although it was simple to describe, it was difficult to accomplish. The speed of the essence was just too fast. Xiao Chen had to catch the right moment every time. This exhausted his spirit. However, he could not be careless. Rumble. As the essence moved in the great cycle, the huge electric whirlpool above Xiao Chen's head started spinning rapidly as well. It pulled in all the lightning-attributed spiritual energy within 1,000 meters. Streaks of lightning crossed each other. Clouds churned and filled a radius of 1,000 meters. The flickering light illuminated the entire Qinren Island as if it were day. Under Xiao Chen's careful control, he was about to complete a great cycle. Before this, the essence nearly sped the wrong direction a few times. Fortunately, Xiao Chen managed to pull the essence back. Xiao Chen felt that his heart was beating faster than normal by several times. The entire process was extremely dangerous. Bang! When all the essence finally gathered back in the Dantian, the Qi whirlpool exploded. The surging essence fluctuated for a long time before it came to a stop. The essence slowly gathered and formed another Qi whirlpool full with purple liquid. Xiao Chen felt bloated after this. After the Qi whirlpool filled, it enlarged again. Purple Thunder Divine Incantation's 6th layer. Success! Xiao Chen shouted excitedly. His eyes opened suddenly, and 2 beams of purple light flashed across the sky. Before Xiao Chen could react, the horrifying electric whirlpool in the sky unexpectedly entered his right eye. This suddenly change stunned Xiao Chen slightly, but he did not panic. The Purple Thunder True Fire completely absorbed all of the energy in the whirlpool. Xiao Chen was not in a rush to test the might of the Purple Thunder True Fire's might. He closed his eyes again and continued to circulate the Qi whirlpool. The golden spirit core in Xiao Chen's palm started spinning. Xiao Chen frantically absorbed its vast and pure golden spiritual energy that was stronger than that of a superior grade spirit stone. The golden spirit core visibly shrunk. Xiao Chen quickly absorbed all its spiritual energy. Xiao Chen wanted to borrow this external energy to break through the restrictions of the martial saint realm and become a martial king in one breath. When Yu Chenxi, in the distance, saw the electric whirlpool vanish, she heaved a sigh of relief. She knew that Xiao Chen's cultivation technique had successfully advanced. However, her expression became grave again. A strong aura came from Xiao Chen. This energy was extremely huge. Furthermore, it continued to rise. Yu Chenxi frowned tightly and said sullenly, This fellow, could he be thinking of breaking through to Martial King? This is mad. As the golden energy poured in, the energy gathered in the Dantane became stronger. Xiao Chen could also clearly feel a barrier before this energy. This was the final hurdle to becoming a Martial King. I will break through it in one breath. Shatter it. I will advance to Martial King. No one can stop me. Xiao Chen shouted fiercely in his heart. He increased his absorption speed of the spirit core's energy. Break. When the golden spirit core completely drained, Xiao Chen shouted. Then, he used this strong energy and circulated his essence to smash into the barrier. Ka-ca. A crunching sound came from within Xiao Chen's body. That barrier halting martial saints shattered without being able to resist. A huge energy instantly filled Xiao Chen. He soared into the air. Xiao Chen was truly flying and not using the gravity spell. He opened his eyes and his face filled with joy. After 2 months of effort, suffering, in one final burst, Xiao Chen finally advanced to Martial King. Roar. Xiao Chen's chi and blood surged. It felt like he had inexhaustible energy. Even his blood seemed like it was on fire. Is this the strength of a Martial King? While Xiao Chen felt elated, he could not help but let out a long roar. His voice was like thunder, reverberating throughout the Qinren Island, not fading for a long time. He really succeeded. Shock filled Yu Chenxi's gaze. He advanced from superior grade martial saint to Martial King in 2 months. This was the cultivation realm that many could not reach in their life. Yet, Xiao Chen only used 2 months to achieve it. If word of this spreads, it will cause a huge uproar. It looks like I picked the right person. He is definitely what first martial uncle told me to find. Xiao Chen calmed his emotions and looked around. He saw Yu Chenxi about 1,000 meters away and smiled faintly. A strong fighting spirit poured out from Xiao Chen's eyes. His aura rushed into the sky with great momentum, then it pressed at Yu Chenxi violently. Yu Chenxi smiled gently and said in a low voice, "Are you looking for a fight?" Coincidentally, I have just made a breakthrough in my morning sun incantation. I still have yet to find someone suitable to test it on. Boom. An aura even stronger than Xiao Chen's rose into the air. Yu Chenxi's figure flashed and quickly headed for Xiao Chen. When Xiao Chen saw Yu Chenxi soar into the sky, the fierce purple flames in his right eye formed a huge whirlpool like it had absorbed the world. Shoot! Xiao Chen shouted, and a purple flame poured from his right eye. A purple light flickered and made the sky look indistinctly green. Everywhere it passed, the purple flame seemed to burn even the air, leaving a huge black void in its wake. What a strong flame! A look of shock flashed in Yu Chenxi's eyes, but she did not panic. Her delicate fists clenched tightly as she gathered boundless energy. Her aura continuously rose. When Yu Chenxi's aura reached its peak, she shouted a war cry and punched. A resplendent light exploded from her fist like the light of the rising sun. It eliminated the surrounding darkness. Boom! The tyrannical fist wind struck the flames violently. When the two attacks clashed, they pushed against each other, not giving way. An intense shockwave radiated. Kai! 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 The shockwave struck a few of the taller mountains on the island. They shattered, and rocks fell from the sky like rain. Unexpectedly, when the purple thunder divine incantation reached the 6th layer, a casual strike from the purple thunder true fire can achieve such might. Even Yu Chenxi's morning sun fist could not shatter it, Xiao Chen thought joyfully. The morning sun fist was one of the few fist techniques famous for its tyranny. Even a regular inferior grade heaven-ranked martial technique could not compare to it in pure strength. The two attacks pushed against each other before they slowly scattered. Xiao Chen placed his right hand on his saber hilt and drew the lunar shadow saber with lightning speed. Glittering wukui. A dazzling purple saber chi appeared from nowhere. A dense light appeared on the saber chi. In the night sky, it looked as piercing as a laser. This was one of the benefits of the martial king realm. Xiao Chen's essence was denser. In both quality and quality, it was better than that of a martial saint's. It was only until now that Xiao Chen used the true might of this ancient martial technique. Previously, what he displayed had merely been the tip of the iceberg. What a surging essence! The quantity of Xiao Chen's essence should be no weaker than a superior grade martial king. Yu Chenxi squinted. When the purple saber chi was 1 meter away from her, she punched the top of the saber chi. Dang! It did not seem like Yu Chenxi's delicate fist was made of human flesh. When it struck the saber chi, it gave off a melodious metallic clang. Ka-ca. Ka-ca. The purple subar chi was like an actual saber. After it shattered, it fell to the ground in pieces. After that, the two exchanged several dozen moves. Xiao Chen discovered that, after he had advanced to martial king, he had not closed the gap between himself and Yu Chenxi. It looked like, with the aid of the daybreak flower, Yu Chenxi's strength had risen. Like before, she did not need a state to be an equal match for Xiao Chen. 1 hour later, Xiao Chen sheathed his saber and stopped fighting. The situation was the same as before. If the two fought to the death, and Xiao Chen used all his trump cards, the palm sword, the Wukui saber technique's 8th move, and the Azure Dragon's chi, it would be easy to force Yu Chenxi to use her state. After that, the odds would become 50-50. However, these were Xiao Chen's trump cards. There was no need to expose them all. Congratulations, you managed to advance from superior grade martial saint to martial king within 2 months. You are probably the only one with such shocking cultivation speed. Yu Chenxi landed beside Xiao Chen and said softly, her voice sounding melodious and pleasing. Xiao Chen replied, just as softly, that is nothing. After wasting so many spirit herbs, if I still didn't break through, something would be wrong. This person is as humble as before. He speaks of this matter so dismissively. However, if a regular cultivator had many treasures, they will not be as bold about it either. At this moment, Xiaobai came running over. She looked at Xiao Chen and said happily, elder brother Xiao Chen, you became stronger again. However, Xiaobai was not lazy. Elder sister Yu says that I have the strength of an inferior grade martial king already. Xiao Chen looked at Yu Chenxi, feeling somewhat suspicious. He did not really believe Xiaobai's words. He remembered that, in the past, her strength was only the equivalent of a regular superior grade martial saint. How could she have improved so fast? Yu Chenxi nodded and said, I was not lying. Xiaobai does indeed have the strength of a martial king. Her heart-nourishing universe sword technique is even somewhat of a headache for me to deal with. Furthermore, she even condensed a sword heart. If she goes to the great Jin nation's drifting snow sword pavilion, many supreme elders will fight to take her in as a disciple. I am good friends with the drifting snow sword pavilion's young pavilion master. If you are interested, I can help Xiaobai enter the sect. Xiao Chen had heard of the drifting snow sword pavilion before. It was one of the peak sects on the continent famed for their skill with swords. There were many experts there, and it could compare to the Supreme Sky sect. When Xiaobai heard this, she said softly, Xiaobai won't go to any sword pavilion. I just want to follow elder brother Xiao Chen. After I become powerful, I will help elder brother Xiao Chen beat up the bad guys. Xiao Chen smiled and said, thank you for your kind intentions. Xiaobai already has a place where she wants to be. Never mind about the drifting snow sword pavilion. When Yu Chenxi saw that the two were very uninterested, she no longer spoke of it. It was already late at night. After they spoke for a while more, they took their leave from each other and rested. Dong. Dong. After Xiao Chen closed his eyes and started cultivating, he suddenly heard footsteps. When he opened his eyes, he saw Yu Chenxi, standing not far from him. "White-robed bladesman, can we talk?" Yu Chenxi said quietly as she looked at Xiao Chen under the moonlight. Xiao Chen glanced at the soundly sleeping Xiaobai and nodded gently. Then, he went with Yu Chenxi to a faraway place. The two stopped at the edge of Chinran Island. The sea breeze blew gently on the two of them. It was extremely comfortable. Xiao Chen casually looked for a clean place to sit before he asked, "Why are you looking for me?" Yu Chenxi took a deep breath before making up her mind. She said seriously, "In a few days, the Supreme Elder of my sect should arrive. I would like to invite you to follow me to the great Jin nation." Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows and said calmly, "Follow you to the Supreme Sky sect." Yu Chenxi nodded and said, "That's right. Now is a golden age for cultivators that no one has seen for 1,000 years. There are all sorts of geniuses, each with outstanding talent. If you go to the great Jin nation, you can see this even more objectively. That is the utopia of all genius cultivators. I have been traveling everywhere in the past year, even the boundless sea. Nowhere can compare to the great Jin nation. Not only do we have many spirit veins that remain intact from the ancient era, but there are also many martial techniques left behind from the ancient era. There are numerous strong sects, resulting in much more intense competition than other places. If a cultivator does not go to the great Jin nation, they would never know how narrow their vision is." A fiery gaze flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes. He was clearly interested in the great Jin nation Yu Chenxi described. This was a place that he certainly had to visit after leaving the great Qin nation. From the time Yu Chenxi exchanged moves with Xiao Chen to when she asked him for help, Xiao Chen had guessed that this girl tried to get close to him for a reason. Yu Chenxi had finally stated her motives. She wanted to invite him to join the Supreme Sky sect. It looks like her position in the Supreme Sky sect is not simple. However, Xiao Chen had his own thoughts. Joining a great sect would mean taking sides before he had planned to do so. However, how strong exactly was the Supreme Sky sect? Were they worth siding with? Without gaining a proper understanding, Xiao Chen would not make such a decision easily. Xiao Chen muttered to himself for a while before he asked, "With your talent and strength, your rank among the youths of the great Jin nation is quite high, right?" When Yu Chenxi saw that Xiao Chen seemed somewhat interested, she smiled and said, "I have a high rank, but I am still a distance away of the top. However, with the daybreak flower, I should be able to close the gap." Given that such a demonic talent like Yu Chenxi was not at the top, the competition in the great Jin nation must reach an intense level. Yu Chenxi continued, "The peak powers on the continent are always seeking genius youths. Have you ever wondered why Jin Dabao and Su Xiaoxiao are so nice to you?" "Why?" Xiao Chen asked with interest. As Yu Chenxi brought up her main point, she smiled gently. "The powers behind them are also the peak powers of the continent. They have the true power on the continent. As long as you come with me to the Supreme Sky sect, you will understand everything." Xiao Chen could not help but laugh hoarsely when he heard this. Yu Chenxi could not understand what was going on. She felt it was strange as she asked, "Why are you laughing?" Xiao Chen got up and patted the dust of his body. He laughed gently, "I am laughing because your recruitment skills are too poor. Since you are trying to recruit me into the Supreme Sky sect, why don't you start with telling me the benefits of joining rather than beating around the bush? What is the point of that?" Yu Chenxi suddenly felt enlightened. She said, "Right, I forgot to mention that. The Supreme Sky sect has all sorts of immortal grade pills and countless spirit herbs above 1,000 years old. We even have many heaven-ranked martial techniques and cultivation techniques. We also have." Xiao Chen interrupted Yu Chenxi and patted her shoulder. He smiled and said, "Miss Yu, this must be your first time recruiting someone, right?" Yu Chenxi was stunned for a while before she said, "How did you know?" "Wait. No. The sky is about to brighten. Go to sleep and don't disrupt my cultivation." After Xiao Chen spoke, he immediately turned to leave. As Yu Chenxi watched Xiao Chen leave, she felt a headache coming on. She stomped her foot violently. Yu Chenxi had met all sorts of outstanding talents on her experiential training. Yu Chenxi had seen at least 50, if not 100, people like Jin Wuji. However, none of them caught her eye. Yu Chenxi finally found someone who captured her attention after much difficulty, but Xiao Chen was hard to deal with. Furthermore, he was not like the others, all polite when they saw her. Xiao Chen did not care about his attitude and treated Yu Chenxi like an ordinary person. This even caused her to suspect her own charms. "It looks like I cannot complete the mission first. Martial uncle passed to me." Yu Chenxi heaved a long, drawn-out sigh. The second morning, when the first rays of sunlight shone on the earth, waking the three. After they had breakfast, Yu Chenxi brought up the topic from last night again. "Xiao Chen, I am sincere about this. There will be people from the boundless sea and the ancient desolate land attending the next 5-nation youth competition. This will be the most magnificent competition in the history of the Tianwu continent. You must have thought about participating before. However, this round will be even more intense than before. If you do not have the strength of a superior grade martial king, you will not make it to the top 100. Join the Supreme Sky Sect. Only peak powers like the Supreme Sky Sect receive news of fortuitous encounters. Only these fortuitous encounters will raise your strength that quickly in 2 years." After thinking through the entire night, Yu Chenxi finally thought of a great benefit. After she spoke, she watched Xiao Chen in anticipation. Xiao Chen was about to answer when his strong spiritual sense detected an overwhelming energy flying toward them. "The elder of your sect should be arriving," Xiao Chen said softly when he looked at the huge wave ahead. When Yu Chenxi heard this, she quickly looked in the same direction. Yu Chenxi saw the towering waves open up like a roll-up door. They slowly opened from the bottom to the top, leaving the sea and soaring into the sky. An old man walked calmly on the surface of the sea. The surging waves suddenly grew calm as the old man walked over. Without the force from the surging wave, the sea was gentle. The old man simply approached serenely after breaking the huge waves, which even a martial monarch could not. From a distance, it looked like a huge gate being pulled open by a formless force. This is the power of a sage. He can easily flip the sea with a wave of his hand and change the natural laws. Xiao Chen was not too astonished as he watched that old man slowly approach. He merely felt shaken to the core. This was a true expert, one who stood at the peak of this world. Xiao Chen finally got to see one. Hu Kai. The old man had been 1,000 meters away, but he instantly arrived at the island. It looked like the few steps he took surpassed the limitations of space, moving a large distance in an instant. "First martial uncle, why are you here?" Yu Chenxi looked at the old man and revealed a joyous expression as she ran over. The old man smiled and looked at Yu Chenxi. "You have no idea how anxious we old men were when we received your message. If it were not for the fact that the sect needed someone to hold down the fort, your Grandmaster would have come personally." Yu Chenxi stuck her tongue out mischievously. She smiled and said, "It's not like we could never escape. We were merely stuck here temporarily. You are all too hasty." Yu Chenxi glanced meaningfully at Xiao Chen before muttering something into the old man's ears. After the old man listened to her, he looked at Xiao Chen with interest. It felt as if his gaze could see through all falsehoods in this world as he examined Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen's gaze turned grave. He felt the other party's vast mental energy and wanted to block it with his spiritual sense. However, Xiao Chen thought about it and felt that, If a martial sage wanted to check him out, his spiritual sense was not sufficient to stop him. Even if he successfully stopped it, it would only attract further interest from the other party. This would result in the other party in utilizing other means to achieve his goal. Since it was pointless, there is no point blocking it. It was simply too difficult to keep secrets from a martial sage. Shoo. The old man retracted his gaze and revealed a pondering look. He thought to himself, what a strange kid. I unexpectedly can't see his martial spirit. First martial uncle, how is he? What do you think of my insight? Yu Chenxi asked in anticipation. The old man nodded as he smiled, reaching inferior grade martial king at the age of 18. This kind of cultivation talent can only be considered average in the great Jin nation. However, he has grasped two different states at the same time. Based on this, he is qualified to step into the ranks of geniuses. Haha, there is still the most important point. Yu Chenxi asked interestedly, what else is there? The old man continued, I will speak to him personally about it later. In any case, your insight was good. He is the kind of person this old man is looking for. Yu Chenxi instantly revealed a joyful expression. However, after that, she revealed a somewhat helpless expression. This fellow seemed to be unmoved by force or persuasion. After promoting the sect for a long time, he did not show any signs of accepting or rejecting. The old man smiled and said softly, he is intelligent. Let me speak to him. Xiao Chen and Xiaobai were 200 meters away from the old man. Logically, given the close distance, they should have heard the conversation between the old man and Yu Chenxi. However, it was unknown why, but Xiao Chen could not hear anything. Furthermore, when he looked at them, their figures seemed hazy and vague. Given this, Xiao Chen could not even guess what they discussed by reading their lips. As Xiao Chen pondered on some matters, the old man and Yu Chenxi suddenly appeared before him. He collected his thoughts and cupped his hands in a fashion that was neither humble or proud. He said, Junior Xiao Chen greets Senior. Would Senior please inform me of your distinguished name? The old man measured Xiao Chen from a close distance. When he saw that Xiao Chen's emotions did not fluctuate, despite being so close to him, remaining calm, he praised him in his heart. I do not dare claim to be distinguished, but my name is Ji Yu Ying, just a nobody in the Supreme Sky sect. If little friend does not mind, you can call me Senior Ji Yu. Xiao Chen nodded and said, many thanks to Senior Ji Yu for lending a hand. Otherwise, we would be stuck on this island for another 1 year or more. Ji Yu Ying waved his hands dismissively and said, that does not really qualify as help, merely an act of convenience. If I did not guess wrong, you only truly started cultivating 2 years ago, correct? The moment Ji Yu Ying spoke, not only did Xiao Chen feel shocked, but Yu Chenxi, who stood behind him, was also shocked. Her jaw hung slack, unable to close it. Could this be the most important point that first martial uncle talked about? Cultivating to martial king in 2 years, such talent is truly horrifying and unprecedented. Xiao Chen had not expected Ji Yu Ying's eyes to be so sharp either. Ji Yu Ying could even uncover this information. He could only nod in acknowledgement. Ji Yu Ying smiled faintly and said, you are a smart person, I will not beat around the bush. This is a golden age for cultivation that has not appeared in the past 1,000 years. Geniuses from all over fill the peak powers. Not taking sides without understanding the Supreme Sky Sect's situation is a wise move. However, let me give you a warning. Before the next 5-nation youth competition, you should find a side to stand on. That would be your last chance. Catch. This is your reward from helping this brat. Ji Yu Ying tossed a glittering medallion. Xiao Chen casually caught it and took a look. The word, Supreme, was on the front, and the back said, Clear Sky. TL note. The Chinese for Supreme Sky Sect is Tai Hao Zong. So the front of the medallion is Tai Shang, which means, Supreme. The back said Hao Tian, only the first character is in the sect name. On its own, it means, the vast sky. The second character also means, sky, but when placed at the first character, it means, clear sky. The golden medallion seemed to have a mysterious energy. When Xiao Chen held it in his hand, he felt a faint warmth. Strands of gentle energy came from within. This helped one to calm down and allowed them to relax. Seeing Xiao Chen catch the medallion, Ji Yuying smiled. I shall take me leave first. If you come to the great Jin nation in the future, do come to the Supreme Sky Sect to pay us a visit. This old man will do my best in hosting you. Xiao Chen put away the medallion and cupped his hands. Senior, take care on your journey. In the distance, Ji Yuying moved 1,000 meters every step he took as he carried Yu Chenxi. After a few steps, he vanished from Xiao Chen's sight. As Xiao Chen watched the two leave, he muttered to himself, as the legends say, every move of a martial sage will affect the natural laws. Based on today, this seems to be true. Ji Yuying carried Yu Chenxi and moved through the sky, moving 1,000 meters with each step. First martial uncle, why did you not talk to him about joining the Supreme Sky Sect? Yu Chenxi felt doubtful as she asked Ji Yuying. Ji Yuying smiled gently and said, it's fine as long as he received the clear sky medallion. The elder sighed, everything about you is good, but your mindset is too pure and simple. Otherwise, that fellow would not have frustrated you so. Xiao Chen retracted his gaze and smiled at Xiaobai. Xiaobai, it's time for us to go too. The two quickly moved towards the gap in the huge waves, moving in a line. Not long after they left, the gap in the huge waves closed, water fell from above. The waves had sealed Chinran Island once again. It would open again in a few years. However, few people would probably travel there at that time. Xiao Chen and Xiaobai chatted as they walked calmly on the sea. With their cultivation realm now, it was not difficult for them to walk on the water's surface. Xiaobai said softly, elder brother Xiao Chen, I have already cultivated that flowing light sword art you gave me to the 5th layer. In the future, Xiaobai is no longer afraid of bad people. So, elder brother Xiao Chen, please don't treat me as a burden anymore. When Xiao Chen saw Xiaobai's slightly red eyes, he was stunned. Xiaobai was no longer that little spirit fox from the past that understood nothing. Xiaobai's thoughts were slowly becoming more mature. She had her own mind and acted on her own initiative. Xiao Chen rubbed Xiaobai's head and smiled gently. How is Xiaobai a burden? You have helped pick so many herbs for me in the past and saved my life several times. Now, you are even stronger than me. Xiao Chen paused a while here. He looked at the peaceful sea before him and muttered, however, I owe you too much. If I let you get injured, I will feel very guilty. When Xiaobai was just born, Xiao Chen took her away from her mother. Although the situation was dire, and he had rescued her from the Tang clan, he had some selfish motives as well. Otherwise, he would not have passed on a cultivation technique to her mother as compensation. Outside Whitewater City, this little fellow rescued Xiao Chen. She did not care for her own safety and rescued him from Hua Yunfei and Duan Muqing. After that, Xiaobai dragged her tired body all over the savage forest for him. Even though there was plenty of danger and many fierce spirit beasts in the savage forest, Xiaobai picked herbs to treat Xiao Chen, helping tide over the most dangerous moment in his life thus far. Since then, Xiao Chen swore to himself that he would not look at Xiaobai as a pet, and he would not let her injure herself for him. After Xiaobai changed her form into that of a human, Xiao Chen felt guilty. He made up his mind not to let Xiaobai experience any further danger. Hence, Xiao Chen had never seen Xiaobai as a burden. Xiaobai's eyes were somewhat watery as she said softly, "Is that true, elder brother Xiao Chen?" Xiao Chen said, "Truer than precious pearls. Let's go. Let's have a race to see who reaches Greenwind Island first. If you arrive first, I will let you have a feast of wine." Xiaobai sniffled and smiled, "All right. Xiaobai can run very fast. Elder brother Xiao Chen will not catch me." Boom. Boom. Just at this moment, massive waves 1,000 meters tall surged 1,000 meters around the two of them. A strong undercurrent swept under the previously calm sea and rushed at the waves, causing them to rise another 1,000 meters in the blink of an eye. Aside from martial sages and above, no one else could achieve this. Xiao Chen had a helpless expression as he experienced a powerless feeling. He actually ran into two martial sages in one day. Before martial sages, the two did not have any chance of survival. However, the other party did not make a move to attack. It was clear that the situation could be turned around. Xiao Chen glanced over and looked at the empty sea. He shouted, "Might this junior know which senior is present? Why is senior blocking this junior's path?" Pooh. Pooh. Suddenly, light footsteps were heard from the sea behind them. Xiao Chen turned, and two blurry figures appeared in his vision. One was male, and the other was female, both dressed in white. When Xiao Chen got near, he clearly saw what they looked like. The man looked to be about 30 and was very handsome. His face had an indistinct monster-like appearance, and his eyes looked deep and very attractive. This was a man who could drive any girl crazy. Xiao Chen had never seen anyone so handsome before. He fully used a man's charm. The woman also looked like she was in her 30s. She was pretty, and her skin was smooth. She was very pretty. When she walked with the man, they were the perfect couple. Xiao Chen found the appearance of the couple very familiar. Suddenly, he turned his head to look at Xiaobai, and he was startled. This couple looked very similar to Xiaobai. Xiao Chen made a guess in his heart. Xiaobai clutched Xiao Chen's arm tightly and hid behind him. She said softly, "Elder brother Xiao Chen, why do I feel that these two people look very familiar?" "Of course, we look familiar. You are my daughter. How can we not look familiar?" The handsome man in white smiled as he looked at Xiaobai. The pretty lady at the side smiled at Xiao Chen and said, "Little friend, thank you for passing me the cultivation technique. Also, thank you for taking care of Xiaobai for so long." Xiaobai looked at Xiao Chen and asked, "Elder brother Xiao Chen, is what they say true?" Xiao Chen's expression became grave. He had not expected something like this to happen. After a long time, he nodded his head and said, "Xiaobai, it's true. They are your parents." Since the other party had mentioned the mysterious 9 heavenly revolution transformation and they looked so similar, this should be true. Xiao Chen was only suspicious of how the other party found him. Xiaobai's gaze filled with curiosity as she examined the faces of the couple. She seemed extremely excited. She could feel a familiarity and closeness from her bloodline and was no longer as afraid as before. Xiao Chen took a deep breath and worked very hard to maintain his calm. He asked, "How did you find me?" Xiaobai's parents exchanged glances. Finally, the white-clothed man said, "Let me say it. Xiaobai's mother knows your identity. After she successfully changed forms, she went to the Myriad Fiend Palace to look for me. At first, I kept sending people to the Great Qin Nation to keep track of news about you. However, it seemed like you had offended some big powers and had gone into hiding. The people I sent could not find any news about you. This continued until 3 months ago when you defeated the various noble clans' heirs. Only then did I manage to uncover news about you. After that, news of your fight with Yu Chenxi on the Greenwind Island spread as well. By then, we knew exactly where you were. Thinking about it, that was true." After Xiao Chen left the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, He did not bother with covering his tracks at all. As long as one spent the effort, it was not really difficult to track him down. Now that Xiao Chen had cleared his doubts, he threw caution to the wind and said, "What do you want? Just say it. If you want to kill me, just do it. After all, I cannot resist. Do you want to kill elder brother Xiao Chen? Xiaobai will not allow you to hurt him." When Xiaobai heard what Xiao Chen said, she nervously stood in front of Xiao Chen. The white-clothed man and the beautiful lady exchanged a glance and could not help but laugh. "Why would we want to kill you? You saved my wife and aided my daughter in changing forms. Furthermore, you did not enslave her. I can tell that with one glance. I, and Zixuan, can distinguish right from wrong and will not distort the truth deliberately." This person's words gave off an imposing atmosphere. As he stood quietly on the surface of the sea, he did not release the aura of a martial sage. Xiao Chen's expressions relaxed. He had not expected such a situation. He had stolen his daughter away as a pet and thought that the other party would be harsh on him for it. Even if Zixuan did not kill Xiao Chen on account of him saving Xiaobai's mother, he would at least beat Xiao Chen. Now, it seemed like not only would Zixuan not kill Xiao Chen, but Zixuan was also quite considerate to him, confusing him. Xiaobai's mother looked at Xiaobai and smiled. "We will not do anything to you. We just want to take Xiaobai to the Myriad Fiend Palace. In the end, she is not human. If the human world discovers her identity." And Zixuan continued, "With your strength, you are far from sufficient to protect her. It is the safest for her at the Myriad Fiend Palace." Xiao Chen lowered his head and pondered. The other party was Xiaobai's parents. Their reasoning was sound, and they had the right to take Xiaobai away. He did not have any reason to stop them. However, Xiao Chen was still somewhat unwilling to send Xiaobai away. For a long time, he had been alone, and only Xiaobai accompanied him. To Xiao Chen, Xiaobai was not a pet but a true companion. After she left, his path on the road of cultivation would become far lonelier. Xiaobai will not go. Xiaobai changed form after many difficulties so that she could stay by elder brother Xiao Chen's side so that Xiaobai can cultivate and help him beat up the bad people. When Xiaobai heard that Zixuan wanted to take her away, she quickly hid behind Xiao Chen. When Zixuan heard that, his expression changed slightly. He looked at Xiao Chen, and his expression turned grave. An indistinct killing intent started to spread. Xiao Chen immediately felt a horrifying pressure. He did not know what was going on, so he put his guard up and prepared to flee at any time. Xiaobai's mother tugged at Zixuan gently when she saw the situation. She whispered into his ear for a moment before his expression returned to normal. When Xiao Chen heard what Xiaobai's mother said, he could not help his bitter smile. So, Zixuan thought that he had fooled around with his daughter. That's why Xiaobai said something like that. However, no matter how dastardly I am, I will not make a move on a little girl, Xiao Chen thought, depressed. However, as Xiaobai's parents, they were right to worry. Xiao Chen could understand and knew what to say. Xiao Chen pushed Xiaobai in front of him and smiled gently. "Xiaobai, you should leave with your parents. I will visit you at the Myriad Fiend Palace in the future. It's true. With my current strength, I cannot protect you." Xiaobai's eyes were moist as she said, "Elder brother Xiao Chen, do you not want me anymore?" When Zixuan and his wife saw Xiaobai's attachment to Xiao Chen, they did not know what to do. This was especially so when they saw the girl crying. Xiao Chen gently advised, "You have remained by my side for a long time. However, your parents have never spent any time with you. This is not fair to them. Isn't Xiaobai a very mature girl?" When Xiaobai heard this, she thought about it. Clearly, she was moved by Xiao Chen's words. However, she still hesitated and was very restless. Xiaobai's mother came over at this moment and held Xiaobai's hands gently. She smiled and said, "Xiaobai, you are now very weak and Xiao Chen has to keep distracting himself to protect you. This will affect his cultivation. You don't want to see that happen, right?" The moment Xiaobai heard this, she immediately lowered her head. She thought to herself, "Indeed, I am very weak. I cannot defeat many strong demonic beasts." Although Xiao Chen had not called her a burden, there were some things that did not need to be said. For a very long time, Xiao Chen had always protected her. She could rarely help him. After Xiaobai thought of that, she looked up and asked, "Then, if I go to the Myriad Fiend Palace, will I become stronger?" And Zixuan finally heaved a sigh of relief and smiled. "You are my daughter, naturally, your talent is not poor. If you go to the Myriad Fiend Palace, you will become stronger than me one day." Xiaobai turned back to ask Xiao Chen if it were true or not. When she got a definitive answer, she finally agreed to go to the Myriad Fiend Palace. What must happen, will happen. Even if Xiao Chen felt unwilling, he made his decision. He removed the spirit blood jade on his chest and handed it to Zixuan. And Zixuan received it and took a look. Then, he handed it back. He said softly, "Keep it. You can still meet in the future. I know that you sincerely care for Xiaobai." After Zixuan said that, he took out a jade medallion and handed it to Xiao Chen. He said, "This is the Myriad Fiend Palace's Heavenly Fiend Medallion. At a crucial moment, you can summon a clone of the ancient Fiend Emperor to save your life. If you don't use it, you can bring it to the Myriad Fiend Palace to look for me. I will agree to help you with something that is not unreasonable." Xiao Chen received the medallion and felt speechless. Why do these martial sages like to hand out medallions to people? I have actually received 2 medallions in one day. Seniors, Xiaobai, I will take my leave first. After you go to the Myriad Fiend Palace, stop behaving like a small drunkard. Xiao Chen smiled gently and said his goodbyes. As Xiaobai watched Xiao Chen leave, tears fell from the corners of her eyes. She made a promise to herself, "In 2 years, I will become very strong. I will not be a burden to elder brother Xiao Chen." After Xiao Chen left Xiaobai, he felt truly alone. In the future, he could only walk the path of cultivation alone. Then, he looked at the lunar saber and smiled faintly. "That's not right, I forgot about you. I still have the lunar shadow saber. Regardless of the situation, my saber will always accompany me." There was still a long way to go. Xiao Chen calmed himself and continued on his journey to Greenwind Island. Along the way, 2 sharp killing chi came from the reef ahead and pressed on Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen's eyes brightened, and he scanned the area before him. When he clearly saw the appearance of 2 people, he could not help but feel it was strange. He said, "It's Wu Shengxuan and Yang Wen. Why are they together?" Xiao Chen remembered that Wu Shengxuan had viciously slaughtered Yang Wen's companions in the treasure room on Qinren Island. Yet, they were now together and had become companions. Shoo! Shoo! Wu Shengxuan and Yang Wen flew toward Xiao Chen rapidly. Soon, they landed about 100 meters away from him. Wu Shengxuan fondled his chin as a sinister look flashed in his eyes. He said viciously, "I told you before. As long as we waited here, we would run into this brat sooner or later. Do you believe me now?" Yang Wen smiled faintly and looked at Xiao Chen as he said, "Hand over the treasures you found in the treasure room, as well as the spirit herbs you obtained from the herb garden. If you do that, I will consider letting you live. Otherwise, don't think you can escape alive." Xiao Chen squinted his eyes and revealed a disdainful look. As long as they have a common interest, enemies can stand so close together. This is interesting. However, did these 2 people think that Xiao Chen was someone easily dealt with? Wu Shengxuan revealed a murderous intent on his face. He said coldly, "Why bother speaking nonsense with him? Just kill him, and we can split the contents of his spatial ring. Kill. After Wu Shengxuan spoke, he stomped on the sea heavily and the huge force caused waves to surge up. Ban. Yang Wen's eyes turned cold, and he stopped speaking. He also stomped on the sea and launched himself forward. Despite the two people with surging auras rushing over, Xiao Chen maintained his calm. A fierce flame burned continuously in his right eye. Soon, a huge flaming whirlpool formed in the boundless space of Xiao Chen's right eye. He shouted a war cry, and the surging purple flame spewed out. Boom. Before the two were 20 meters from Xiao Chen, a massive, surging purple flame suddenly appeared before them. It was 10 meters wide and 100 meters tall. The scorching purple flames flickered with a dim light. The high temperature caused steam to rise from the sea. As the steam rose into the air, it spread and formed an overwhelming mist. Wu Shengxuan and Yang Wen's expression changed greatly. In one instant, a boundless churning sea filled their vision. In the next instant, a huge purple flame suddenly covered their vision. This was very frightening. Retreat. This strange and strong purple flame startled the two. They could not understand what was happening as they executed their movement technique to their peak and retreated. Kai. Kai. The purple flame suddenly landed where the two had originally stood. A deep void, about 20 meters in diameter, appeared in the sea water. A large vapor cloud rose from the sea. The void appeared only for an instant before the surrounding seawater filled the whole. A huge whirlpool formed in the calm sea. Currents formed in the surrounding water as the whirlpool spun increasingly faster. Finally, a huge pillar of water shot into the sky, appearing very frightening. Wu Shengxuan and Yang Wen exchanged a glance. They both saw fear in each other's expressions. 3 months ago, although Xiao Chen was strong, he was still slightly weaker than them. However, at this moment, a casual strike from Xiao Chen, without even drawing his saber, could cause such great calamity. His strength had far exceeded either of theirs. Damn it! This fellow has grown stronger. We must deal with him with our full strength. Otherwise, he will bury us here. Wu Shengxuan said sinisterly. A dark dagger had appeared in his hand at an unknown time. Yang Wen also took out a pair of gloves from his spatial ring and slowly placed them on. Reverse metal hooks and spikes covered the gloves. A spiritual light also flickered on the material. They were clearly a secret treasure. Xiao Chen watched the two's movements and smiled faintly. He slowly moved forward, and the flames in his right eye began to rage once more. Boom. 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 Strands of purple flame launched out like artillery shells. Everywhere they passed, the air burned, creating a dark vacuum. The two leapt continuously on the sea surface, avoiding the purple flames flying at them. The sea became choppy as it churned. Occasionally, a surging pillar would soar into the sky. From time to time, the waves tossed some unfortunate fish into the sky, and the high temperature roasted them alive. They burned until only skeletons remained. Boom. Suddenly, Yang Wen shouted a war cry and soared into the air. A huge force exploded from his glove as he punched. A horrifying fist wind struck the purple flames that Xiao Chen had launched, creating intense explosions. Shockwaves swept through the area and immediately created 100 meters tall waves. It looks like the purple flames at 70% power is already the equivalent to the full power strike from a superior grade martial king, Xiao Chen thought to himself. Since that is the case, there is no further need to keep testing it. Ka Ca. Xiao Chen placed his right hand on the saber hilt and drew the lunar shadow saber with lightning speed. A dazzling purple light quickly illuminated the blade. Then, the saber turned into a black line, passing through the wall of water and striking Wu Shengxuan. Wu Shengxuan was preparing to beat Xiao Chen to the point where he could not retaliate. However, He discovered a boundless killing qi above him, surging at him. Wu Shengxuan's expression turned fearful, and he saw a dazzling purple light. The light was so piercing that his eyes hurt. Dang! In the time for a spark to fly, Wu Shengxuan retreated by half a step. He held his dagger in a reverse grip and protected his face with it as he tried to block Xiao Chen's attack descending from the sky. Wu Shengxuan's experience had saved his life at a crucial moment, and he avoided being chopped in half. However, a huge force traveled through the dagger and caused Wu Shengxuan's wrist to be numb. He almost dropped his weapon. When Wu Shengxuan saw his opponent remaining calm with killing qi radiating from his eyes, his heart turned cold. He held his right wrist with his left hand. "You think you can block it?" Xiao Chen snorted coldly. He pushed his right hand, which held the saber, down. The purple qi whirlpool in his dantian spun rapidly and sent more essence liquid. With the aid of the purple thunder divine incantation's 6th layer, Xiao Chen's strength instantly increased by 20%. Bang! This force knocked Wu Shengxuan's body away, and he dropped the dagger. How many spirit herbs did this fellow consume? How is his essence so surging? It is much stronger than a regular superior grade martial king. Wu Shengxuan vomited a mouthful of blood as he thought in horror. Xiao Chen's essence was unexpectedly stronger than his. Although Wu Shengxuan's cultivation technique was only a medial grade earth-ranked cultivation technique, he had practiced it for several decades. However, Xiao Chen was only a teenager, yet, he could overwhelm Wu Shengxuan with his essence. Boom! Suddenly, a sonic boom rang beside Wu Shengxuan's ear. It was Yang Wen, taking advantage of this opportunity to fly over. Xiao Chen spun around and brandished his saber. His movements were very fluid. He directly chopped down on his opponent's gloves. Bang! 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 The sharp saber created sparks on the gloves. However, the gloves remained undamaged. The gloves decreased the surging essence by half. Yang Wen had a sinister look as he laughed. "My gloves are an offensive peak inferior grade secret treasure. You cannot break through them. Don't regret giving me a chance to get near to you." Shoo! Yang Wen arrived less than 1 meter before Xiao Chen in a flash. He punched with his right fist at Xiao Chen's chest. The spikes and reverse hooks on his gloves were very visible. When looking at them, one would tremble in fear. If they were struck by them, they would either receive severe injuries or die. When cultivators got into a close-quarter fight, long weapons like sabers and swords lose their effectiveness. They could not do anything to stop the opponent's movements. This was the principle of 1 inch longer, 1 inch stronger, 1 inch shorter, 1 inch riskier. Xiao Chen tilted his body to dodge his opponent's attack and then quickly retreated. Before his opponent got close again, he brandished his saber. However, that strange pair of gloves had significantly reduced the force of Xiao Chen's attack again. Yang Wen took advantage to close in on him once more. Hu Kai. This repeated a few times. Xiao Chen was unable to deal with Yang Wen's attacks completely. Wu Shengxuan finally regulated the fluctuating essence within his body and rejoined the fight. He turned into a flash of black light and used his sharp dagger to harass Xiao Chen occasionally. When the two cooperated, they finally managed to suppress Xiao Chen. They forced Xiao Chen into retreating on the sea surface. In the blink of an eye, they had moved 1,000 meters. Wu Shengxuan's complexion also regained its color. He laughed sinisterly. "Brat, the people whom I, Wu Shengxuan, have targeted have never survived. You will not be an exception. I will trample on you violently once I'm done. How dare you step on me? Reckless fool." Right after Wu Shengxuan spoke, he became slightly careless. In the time for a spark to fly, Xiao Chen noticed it and kicked out. Ka Ca. Xiao Chen kicked Wu Shengxuan's chin again, causing him to tumble through the air. Blood dripped from his chin ceaselessly. It's my chance. Yang Wen's eyes lit up with joy. He increased the speed of his fist wind. There will definitely be an opening the instant he withdraws his attack. He will not be able to dodge or retreat. Indeed, Xiao Chen could not dodge this attack. However, he had not planned to do so either. With a thought, the jade pendant on his chest lit up, laying a dense essence shield around Xiao Chen. Ka-ca. Ka-ca. The gloves with reverse hooks and spikes stopped at the essence shield for a second before breaking it and continuing forward. It was exactly as how this jade pendant was described. It could only block the full power strike of a medial grade martial king. It could not block the attacks of a superior grade martial king. However, by softening the force of the attack, Xiao Chen had achieved his goal. He still had a peak inferior grade defensive secret treasure, the inner vest. The sharp gloves struck Xiao Chen's chest. However, unlike what Yang Wen imagined, it did not pierce his chest or create a mess of blood. It merely knocked Xiao Chen back by 10 meters and did nothing else. How did it turn out like this? My gloves are extremely sharp. Even a peak superior grade martial king cannot block them, Yang Wen exclaimed in shock. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and brandished his saber as he advanced. You are not the only person with secret treasures. Yang Wen recovered his wits and smiled. As long as you let me get near, unless your essence surpasses that of a martial monarch, my punch will weaken your essence. Is that so? Xiao Chen laughed coldly, and a red light flashed on his forehead. The red light instantly flowed into the dazzling purple saber light. The state of massacre merged with the saber light. Ka-ca. Xiao Chen hacked down as Yang Wen watched with a disbelieving gaze. Xiao Chen chopped the gloves into halves, and they fell off. The gloves no longer weakened the surging force. The saber chi swept across and opened a horrifying wound on Yang Wen's chest. Wukui shakes the heavens. Xiao Chen followed up his successful attack, immediately executing the killing move of the Wukui saber technique. After Xiao Chen advanced to martial king, the might of the Wukui saber technique increased by several folds. The might of a peak earth-ranked martial technique was truly displayed. The divine Wukui tree contained a strong electrical energy and a surging aura as it descended from the sky. Yang Wen could not dodge in time. The divine Wukui tree struck him, and he vomited mouthfuls of blood before falling to the sea. Xiao Chen did not give Yang Wen a chance to get back up. He charged forward and swung his saber 3 times, dealing with this person once and for all. Then, Xiao Chen removed Yang Wen's spatial ring. He turned around and chased after Wu Shengxuan, who had transformed into a flash of black light and fled. Xiao Chen, the next time you meet this old man, I will consign you to eternal damnation, and you will die without a chance to get buried. Xiao Chen leapt into the air and said indifferently, you no longer have that chance. Wukui breaks the heavens. A thick beam of light, alternating between purple and red, elongated on the saber. In the blink of an eye, it extended several thousand meters over the sea. Everywhere the beam passed, waves surged on either side. Its aura was very frightening. Ah! A loud, miserable cry echoed. Wu Shengxuan held his hand over a bloody wound at the end of the beam of light. His eyes filled with horror. Pooh! 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 Xiao Chen slowly walked over on the sea. By the time he arrived before Wu Shengxuan, he had stopped breathing. Then, Xiao Chen removed the spatial ring on his hand. After that, Xiao Chen sheathed the lunar shadow saber without sparing the other's body even a glance before continuing onto Greenwind Island. The setting sun looked scarlet as it reflected its light on the surface of the vast sea. The 2 corpses floated peacefully at sea. However, soon, the ferocious sea creatures consumed them, not even leaving bones. Xiao Chen's emotion did not fluctuate much when he killed 2 peak superior grade martial kings. Before he had advanced to martial king, He could already kill superior-grade martial kings. After Xiao Chen advanced to martial king, his strength increased comprehensively. Killing 2 ordinary peak superior-grade martial kings was nothing. The strength of a cultivator was primarily dependent on the purity and quantity of essence followed by cultivation technique, martial techniques, and comprehended states, in that order. Xiao Chen did not lack strength in any of these. He had relied on large amounts of spirit herbs for his essence. His essence could compare to peak superior-grade martial kings. The cultivation technique Xiao Chen cultivated was a heaven-ranked cultivation technique. His opponents had only cultivated a medial-grade earth-ranked cultivation technique. The martial technique he used was a peak earth-ranked ancient martial technique, much stronger than what his opponents had used. As for states, there was no need even to mention them. Xiao Chen's state of thunder, which he merged with holy might, and the state of massacre could overwhelm his opponents. With Xiao Chen's current strength, martial kings who were less than half-step martial monarchs could not defeat him. Of course, the peak geniuses of some great sects with better situations than him were exceptions. Xiao Chen collected his thoughts and opened Yang Wen's spatial ring. He scanned it with his spiritual sense and counted more than 20,000 inferior-grade spirit stones and more than 5,000 medial-grade spirit stones. It looked like Yang Wen had a good harvest from the Qinren Island. 5,000-odd medial-grade spirit stones was a significant sum. However, they all now belonged to Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen put away the spirit stones and shifted his gaze to Wu Shongshuan's spatial ring. This person had been vicious and deceitful. In the main palace at the Qinren Island, many treasure seekers died at his hands. Even if they did not number 100, they would, at least, number 80. Xiao Chen thought of the bloody pile of corpses at that doorway, and his heart felt a chill. Xiao Chen wondered what would be in Wu Shongshuan's spatial ring. He was full of anticipation as he sent in his spiritual sense. Piles of spirit stones appeared in Xiao Chen's vision, dazzling him. Even though he had mentally prepared, he did not expect such riches. Xiao Chen made a rough count. Just counting medial-grade spirit stones alone, there were more than 15,000. There were also more than 200 very rare superior-grade spirit stones. The inferior-grade spirit stones were simply uncountable. Aside from these, there were many secret treasures and all sorts of martial techniques and cultivation techniques. Thinking about it, Wu Shongshuan must have taken them from other cultivators. Xiao Chen took a deep breath before he calmed himself. He said, "He obtained all of this using despicable tactics. That is not the right way to do things." Xiao Chen's statement was proven by the fact that Wu Shongshuan had so many resources, but he still had not advanced to half-step martial monarch. This also served as a warning for Xiao Chen. If one's heart were warped, he would not reach the peak. The bustling harbor of the Greenwind Island had already appeared before Xiao Chen's eyes. He quickly placed the spirit stones within his own universe ring before hastening toward the Greenwind Island. When Xiao Chen reached the island, he immediately rushed toward the inn where he had stayed and asked around for Jin Dabao and Su Xiaoxiao. "Youth hero, your friends had already left a month ago. Before they departed, they left a letter behind, telling me to hand it to you." When the waiter at the inn saw Xiao Chen asking, he quickly took out a sealed letter and handed it to Xiao Chen. "They left a month ago. This means that Jin Dabao and Su Xiaoxiao waited more than 2 months for me. This is quite interesting." Xiao Chen smiled faintly and received the letter. Then, he rewarded the waiter with an inferior-grade spirit stone. The waiter immediately left joyfully. Xiao Chen ripped open the letter and carefully read its contents. After a while, he finished reading it. The letter did not say much. The main gist of it was that Jin Dabao had already finished the negotiation with the Black Dragon Group. Both sides took a step back, and he had to deal with this. So, He could not keep waiting for Xiao Chen. At the end of the letter, Jin Dabao invited Xiao Chen to the Great Tang Nation. At that time, he would play the role of a proper host to Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen was quite interested in Jin Dabao's invitation. The strongest sect in the Great Tang Nation was the beast-taming abode. Its fame spread throughout the continent, and he had wanted to check it out for a long time. The beast-taming abode was the only sect that grasped the methods to tame high-ranked spirit beasts. According to rumors, they even managed to tame rank 9 and rank 10 spirit beasts. The beast-taming abode was incredibly famous in the continent. Their founder, Mao Yanan, was also the only cultivator who was not a martial emperor that could compete for the peak with other martial emperors. Xiao Chen carefully put away the letter and called the waiter to prepare a good room and hot water for him. After taking a comfortable, hot bath and dressing, he ordered a feast and ate. After 3 months of living on a desolate island in closed-door training, Xiao Chen's spirit was somewhat tired. Now, a hot bath and a feast gave him great pleasure. Waiter, give his lord 2 vats of wine and 5 kilograms of beef. The faster, the better. Dong. 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 Right after Xiao Chen ate and prepared to settle the bill, a stout man came up. He was 2 meters tall and carried a large axe. He looked coarse and ferocious. When regular people glanced at him, they would tremble in fear. This was the Bilixi whom Xiao Chen forced out of the herb garden with his trick. Xiao Chen had not expected to see him here. Bilixi's gaze moved around and caught sight of Xiao Chen in his white robes. His expression changed greatly as he revealed a ferocious look in his eyes. Bilixi took out his large axe and hacked down without any warning. Dang! Xiao Chen did not draw his saber but used the scabbard to block the axe, giving off a dull sound. A huge force traveled through the scabbard. Surprisingly, Xiao Chen could not deal with the force and took 3 steps back. He had to put some pressure on his legs to push against the wooden floor before he stopped. Something seems to be up with this axe, Xiao Chen thought to himself. The other party's physical strength should be stronger than mine. However, it has not reached a ridiculous level yet. After applying my strength skillfully, I can still dissipate the force. This shows that there is something wrong with the axe. However, Xiao Chen did not focus too much on this problem. He had no intentions of fighting this person. Even though he had already reached Martial King, his odds against Bilixi were not more than 50%. Xiao Chen could only go to the extent of not being afraid of him. After all, the other party was a cultivator who gained his fame long ago. Furthermore, he focused on cultivating his physical body. In reality, his combat prowess was much stronger than cultivators of the same rank. When Xiao Chen saw that Bilixi intended to continue, he said sullenly, Bilixi, if you don't want that spirit herb for tempering the physical body, by all means, swing that axe again. When Bilixi heard that, a light flickered in his eyes. He hesitated for a long time and stayed his axe in the end. Dang! Bilixi casually tossed the axe to the ground, and the huge ant trembled. Bilixi sat down and said, this old man had forgotten. You cultivate the physical body as well. You must have obtained many body-tempering spirit herbs. Hand over all your body-tempering spirit herbs, and I will not kill you. I, Bilixi, am true to my words. Xiao Chen sat down across from him and smiled gently, sorry, I need those body-tempering spirit herbs as well, I can't give them to you. Bilixi's expression froze. He picked up his axe and snarled, brat, are you messing with me? Right before Bilixi erupted in anger, Xiao Chen said in a drawn-out fashion, there are indeed no spirit herbs. However, there is a heaven-ranked body-tempering secret manual passed down by the Savannah King. Bilixi's expression suddenly changed, and he quickly put away his axe. He felt bewildered as he asked, "Are you talking about the Savannah King's firmament body tempering art?" Xiao Chen smiled gently and flashed the firmament body tempering art. When Bilixi had a clear look, he immediately put it away. "It really is the firmament body tempering art. I thought that the dark church's man had stolen it. This brat unexpectedly found it." Bilixi wore a shocked expression. His eyes filled with fire. There were very few cultivators who cultivated their physical body. As for body tempering cultivation techniques, they were, naturally, rarer. A low-ranked body tempering cultivation technique might be harder to find than a high-ranked regular cultivation technique. In the many years Bilixi had cultivated, he merely cultivated an inferior grade earth-ranked body tempering cultivation technique. He had already cultivated that cultivation technique to its peak, and he had no more possibility of improvements. When Bilixi saw that Xiao Chen really had a heaven-ranked body tempering cultivation technique, he was very excited. Bilixi subconsciously grasped the handle of his axe and withdrew his killing chi. He thought joyfully, "Fortunately, this brat delivered himself to me. I will kill him later. After that, I will obtain the body tempering secret manual and spirit herbs easily." Xiao Chen gently took a sip of tea and gazed the other party. He said softly, "Put away your axe. If I want to leave, you cannot stop me. Without the confidence to do so, would I take the initiative to sit across you?" Bilixi calmed down. He said, "What do you want? Just say it. I have to get my hands on that heaven-ranked body tempering secret manual." Xiao Chen said casually, "That can only happen if I am willing. Is that 1,000-year-old snow ginseng still with you?" Bilixi laughed out loudly, "Ha ha. You should have said it earlier. Here, for you. Now, give me the body tempering secret manual." Bilixi cultivated his physical body. The 1,000-year-old snow ginseng could only increase the cultivation of essence. Although it was extremely precious, it was useless to him. Hence, he tossed it out straightforwardly. Xiao Chen laughed, "You are too naive. You want to exchange a snow ginseng for a heaven-ranked secret manual. That is only sufficient to pay for a small portion of it. You are refusing a toast, only to drink a forfeit." Bilixi snorted coldly. He pounded the table with his right fist, and a massive force smashed the wooden table into bits. The table did not merely break apart at the joints but had truly shattered, turning into countless splinters. This showed that Bilixi had great control of his strength. Bilixi raised his large axe and hacked at Xiao Chen's head with lightning speed. However, when that sharp axe was about to hit Xiao Chen's head, Bilixi stopped. The instant the table shattered, Xiao Chen used 2 fingers and jabbed at Bilixi's throat. A 3-inch long sword circled his neck. That 3-inch long sword looked very plain, but Bilixi could feel a terrifying energy from it. Bilixi did not doubt that, as long as he made a move, the sword will immediately slice his throat. Even if he had tempered his body to the point of copper muscle and iron bones, he would not survive it. Xiao Chen said coldly, "You can try. See which is faster, your axe or my flying sword." Bilixi's expression did not change as he said, "Brat, don't be too greedy. If I did not guess incorrectly, you snatched the burial items of the Savannah King. This small sword should be one of them. The firmament body tempering art you are going to give me is probably a copy. You have already won 1,000-year-old snow ginseng with just a copy. Have you thought that, if you are too greedy, I could spread the news of you obtaining all the burial items? Have you considered the consequence of that?" Xiao Chen smiled faintly, "You can do that. I can also spread the news that you attacked me and stole all of the burial items. I have close to 50,000 medial-grade spirit stones. You can try and see whose news will spread faster." Bilixi's face sank. He grasped the axe handle tightly with his right hand and said coldly, "What do you want?" The atmosphere between the two was intense. One person held an axe above the other's head, and one person pressed a secret treasure against the other's neck. With just a thought from either side, they would perish together. In such a situation, someone with a weaker mind would crumble. When the people in the inn saw Bilixi and Xiao Chen fight, they all quickly left, no one stayed behind. When they saw the situation turn strange, they fled as far as they could. Bilixi's infamy had spread far and wide. If he was in a bad mood, he might tear down the entire inn. If they lingered here and got caught in the crossfire, they would only find an unfortunate ending. Xiao Chen's expression remained stoic. It was as though he could not see the dangerous large axe hovering over his head. He said indifferently, "It's very simple. It is impossible to trade the snow ginseng for the secret manual. It's not even worth a copy. Thinking about it, I was the one who tossed this snow ginseng to you. So technically, that was something that had belonged to me in the first place. Don't even think of trying to use my property to exchange for something else, trying to scam me." Bilixi was frustrated when he heard this. This fellow still has the cheek to say this. If he had not tossed this 1,000-year-old snow ginseng to me for no reason, would I have been driven out of the herb garden so early? If I had not been driven out of the herb garden, I would have several good quality body tempering spirit herbs. Had I been lucky, I might even have obtained the Savannah King's burial items. Yet, this fellow turns around and accuses me of scamming him. How shameless. Bilixi said resolutely, "You win, I will throw in another 2,000 medial grade spirit stones. Is that sufficient?" Xiao Chen remained silent for a while before saying, "If I take this firmament body tempering art to the auction in the ancient desolate land, I believe I could obtain at least 10,000 medial grade spirit stones." Bilixi's hand trembled. He was very tempted to hack down on Xiao Chen. This fellow looked young and delicate, yet, he was so imposing. However, how was Bilixi going to obtain 10,000 medial grade spirit stones? All of his properties added together were not even worth that much. Without killing others for treasure or running into fortuitous encounters, he would have to work hard in the ancient desolate land for 5 to 6 years before he could amass that much. Bilixi took a deep breath and did his best to suppress his restless heart. "I can give you another 2,000, no more than that." Xiao Chen looked calmly at Bilixi and said indifferently, "At least add another 5,000. Otherwise, forget it. I will sell it myself. If not, you can gamble, see if you can dodge my flying sword and hit me first. However, let me tell you this first. This secret treasure of mine is a peak inferior grade offensive secret treasure. It is extremely fast. Even I do not have the confidence to dodge it." Bilixi looked like he was going to spew fire from his eyes. Since he became famous, he had not been pushed to such a miserable state before. Furthermore, the other party was merely a junior. Bilixi had to be careful with everything he said. He could not shed any pretense of cordiality. He could not describe such a sullen feeling. However, that inferior grade heaven-ranked body tempering secret manual was simply too important to Bilixi. It was something that could determine whether or not he would advance to the next realm. Cultivating the physical body was an arduous road. For Bilixi to cultivate from an ordinary pleasant to a peak superior grade martial king proved his talent. Bilixi's talent was pretty good. He was just short of a better secret manual before he could advance. Now, Xiao Chen squeezed his weak point. He could not do anything to Xiao Chen. Shoo! Bilixi withdrew his large axe. His coarse face looked very horrifying. After calming his emotions for a long moment, he said, "You win. I will add another 1,000 medial grade spirit stones. As for the rest of the medial grade spirit stones, I need them to purchase body tempering spirit herbs and other things. I cannot give them away. However, I can let you in on a piece of information. Xiao Chen withdrew the miniature sword from his opponent's neck. He thought to himself, 1,000-year-old snow ginseng, 5,000 medial-grade spirit stones, and a piece of information in exchange for a copy of a heaven-ranked secret manual. This was, more or less, what Xiao Chen had expected. If he pushed further, Bilixi would go mad. A heaven-ranked cultivation technique may be very valuable. However, the one Xiao Chen had was one for body tempering. He would not fetch a high price for it. There were too few cultivators who tempered their bodies. It was not a widely used cultivation technique. It would be very difficult to drive the price up at an auction. Hence, when Xiao Chen saw Bilixi, he made up his mind to target Bilixi. He could obtain the highest value of this secret manual from the gruff cultivator. The two found another table and sat down. Xiao Chen said indifferently, "Speak, what information is worth 2,000 medial-grade spirit stones?" Bilixi said sullenly, "I have information of a medial-grade secret treasure. Tell me, is that worth it?" Xiao Chen's heart leapt. Bilixi had instantly captivated his interest. He had already experienced the effects of secret treasures. The clear wind robes increased Xiao Chen's comprehensively. Ever since they had been gifted to him, he had been using them. The windwalk shoes had allowed him to have the speed of a martial king while he was a martial saint. The protective jade pendant had helped Xiao Chen in fights several times already. As for the peak inferior grade inner vest he recently obtained, it had already saved his life once. The palm sword in Xiao Chen's hand forced Bilixi into a standstill, as frustrated as he was. Without all of these secret treasures, Xiao Chen's strength would decrease by 10%, and his speed would decrease at least 20%. This showed how important secret treasures were to him. However, now that Xiao Chen had advanced to the martial king realm, his secret treasures could no longer keep up with his growth. The jade pendant, for example, could only defend against a medial-grade martial king's attack. It would be useless against anything stronger. As for the windwalk shoes, while Xiao Chen was a martial saint, they had raised his movement speed by 20%. However, now that he was a martial king, they could barely raise his speed by 10%. Yang Wen and the greedy Dream Wolf King had struck and damaged the inferior grade inner vest. Xiao Chen did not know how much longer he could use it. The only secret treasures that were still effective for Xiao Chen were the palm sword and the always useful clear wind robes. Medial grade secret treasures held great allure for him. Xiao Chen gently set the teacup on the table and said, "Interested, tell me more." Bilixi said, "You have heard of the demon battlefield in the ancient desolate land before, right? Now, most of the secret treasures on the continent come from there." Xiao Chen had heard of the demon battlefield while he was at the auction in Zaihe City. Cultivators who had risked their lives going to the demon battlefield had placed the secret treasures on auction there. Bilixi continued, "With your strength, there should be no danger for you in the periphery of the demon battlefield. The inner region would be more problematic. As for the core region, I can only say good luck." Xiao Chen frowned slightly and said, "What are you trying to say? Just be direct." Bilixi laughed and took out a piece of paper. He wrote down a location and drew a map before handing it to Xiao Chen. He said, "Normally, medial-grade secret treasures can only be found in the inner region of the demon battlefield. The medial-grade secret treasure I am talking about can be found in the periphery. Of course, there is still some danger. Whether you can obtain it or not is up to you." Xiao Chen took the note from Bilixi and glanced at it. With the location and a map, it would be easy to find the place. After that, Bilixi took out boxes of medial-grade spirit stones before handing over the snow ginseng. He said, 5,000 medial-grade spirit stones, 1,000-year-old snow ginseng, and the news of a medial-grade secret treasure. That is enough already, right? Xiao Chen carefully put away the map and swept everything into his universe ring. Then he smiled faintly and said, "That's enough. Then take out the manual." Bilixi said expressionlessly. Xiao Chen took out a handwritten copy of the secret manual from the universe ring and placed it on the table. Then, he got up, turned away, and left. Bilixi was extremely excited. His eyes blazed with fire as he quickly grabbed the secret manual and started reading. He exclaimed excitedly, "It's real. It's real. The firmament body tempering art. Ha ha ha. I, Bilixi, have finally obtained a heaven-ranked cultivation technique." Soon Bilixi flipped to the last page of the secret manual. When he finished reading it, his expression changed as he grabbed his large axe and ran out to look for Xiao Chen. "You bastard! How dare you cheat me? Why are there only 6 layers? Heaven-ranked cultivation techniques all have at least 12 layers. Where is the other half?" Xiao Chen, who had already reached the staircase, turned around and said, "Naturally, it is in my hands." Bilixi stomped heavily on the wooden floor, hacking his large axe down on Xiao Chen. Relying only on his physical strength, his speed was unexpectedly close to Mach 3. Dang! Xiao Chen drew the lunar shadow saber with lightning speed and merged his 2 states. The state of thunder and state of massacre intermingled as a purple and red light flashed alternatingly on the saber. Xiao Chen executed the drawing the saber. His speed instantly reached Mach 3 as well. He blocked Bilixi's heavy strike in midair without being pushed back. A loud, dull sound followed, and a horrifying force spread out from their weapons, instantly ripping off the inn's roof and tossing it into the air. Fortunately, the other cultivators were wise and had fled earlier. Otherwise, if this shockwave struck them, they would end up in a miserable state. When Bilixi saw that Xiao Chen had blocked his strike while he was in a violent rage, he was somewhat astonished. He shouted angrily, "Brat! What exactly do you want? I already gave you your price, yet, you tricked me." Xiao Chen held onto his lunar shadow saber and said calmly, "Don't treat me like a 3-year-old. Just because you say there is a secret treasure, there will be one. If it were so easy to obtain, then why didn't you retrieve it?" Bilixi said, "If I had not rushed to Chinran Island, I would have obtained that secret treasure long ago. You would not even have the chance to find it." Xiao Chen maintained his calm expression as he said indifferently, "You can say what you want. I can only give you the other half after I have obtained that secret treasure. I advise you not to make a rash move. If I am in a bad mood, I might burn the other half. Your spirit stones and snow ginseng will go to waste." Bilixi was enraged in his heart. Xiao Chen had completely ripped him off in this deal. The most crucial point was that he could not do anything to this fellow. Regardless of when, this fellow can always catch hold of my weak points, taking advantage of me. Damn it! Bilixi cursed and smashed his large axe around the inn in a berserk rage. A horrifying force caused the entire inn to collapse, turning it into rubble. Xiao Chen walked casually on the broad streets of Greenwind Island. Bilixi followed behind with a depressed expression. "Hey, isn't that the white-robed bladesman? The person there looks like Bilixi. What's going on? Why are they together?" Exactly, I remember that Bilixi had been played by the white-robed bladesman several times on Chinran Island. This is really strange. Given Bilixi's temper, it is odd that he is walking like that, as though nothing had happened. Earlier, I heard that they were fighting at Tianhe Inn. I think there is a good chance that Bilixi could not do anything to Xiao Chen. Now, Xiao Chen was already somewhat famous on Greenwind Island. As for Bilixi, he became famous long ago. Hence, when they walked outside, many cultivators immediately recognized them. Xiao Chen's heart was as calm as still water, there were no ripples at all. He merely smiled at the comments and ignored them. However, Bilixi clearly felt frustrated. When he heard them, he grew even more sullen. Finally, when Bilixi heard someone comment that he could not do anything to Xiao Chen, he could no longer hold it back. He exploded with anger and shouted, "What are you all talking about? Go, do what you are supposed to and shut up." When the crowd saw Bilixi's ferocious appearance, they were afraid that trouble would befall them. They quickly stopped talking and only resumed the conversation after he left. The crowd could not do anything to Bilixi. They could only stifle their anger. The more they thought about it, the more upset they became. After the inn collapsed, Bilixi fought with Xiao Chen again. However, after a few hundred moves, he could not take down Xiao Chen. Bilixi had no choice but to admit, with Xiao Chen's new strength, Xiao Chen was on par with him. He had no choice but to agree to the other party's terms. Only when Xiao Chen found the secret treasure would he hand over the latter half of the firmament body tempering art to Bilixi. Hence, Bilixi followed him around. Bilixi said, "I say, you little brat, are my words so unreliable? Would I cheat a junior like you? Will you just give me the latter half of the secret manual?" Xiao Chen did not even bother to turn his head. He smiled faintly and said, "Trust you. Do you think you have a good reputation? Should we go and ask someone?" When Bilixi saw that Xiao Chen was really going to ask someone, he quickly stopped Xiao Chen. He was very clear on what kind of reputation he had. If he let Xiao Chen ask around, wouldn't he just hand Xiao Chen a chance to slap him in the face? "Although I have killed many people, I do not have a pretty face like you. My words are somewhat coarse, and I have a volatile temper. I have always done things forthrightly. I would not lie to you." Xiao Chen held up his hand to stop Bilixi from continuing. He said calmly, "Don't bother saying anything. When I successfully obtain the medial grade secret treasure, I will give you the secret manual. The more you speak about it, the more suspicious you become." While Bilixi cursed and nagged, Xiao Chen quickly headed for the island's harbor. Since Xiao Chen had decided to hunt the secret treasure, he decided not to stay any longer and immediately set out. The secret treasure was not there to wait for him alone. It would be a waste if others got to it first. After the two left the city, they followed the road. Along the way, cultivators recognized the two and discussed them. The nickname, White-Robed Bladesman, irked Bilixi in particular. He could not resist saying in a mocking manner, "Look at that, so many people are calling you White-Robed Bladesman. You seem to believe that it is something to be expected. However, how are you worth of the title of Bladesman?" Xiao Chen was mildly stunned. He asked interestedly, "Then, in your opinion, why am I not worthy of the title Bladesman?" Bilixi laughed coldly and said, "Although you have a sharpness in your heart, this sharpness has not formed into saber intent yet. Without saber intent, how can you be a bladesman? Go to the ancient desolate land and take a look, see what kind of people the 10 great bladesmen are. Then you will know what a bladesman is. Actually, that is pretty far, there is no need to mention them. Just look at the bloody bladesman, Sun Guangquan. He worked hard for 20-odd years before he finally obtained this title. You are just a fledgling. You probably could not even feel Sun Guangquan's saber intent." Xiao Chen's eyebrow lifted. He did not say anything to rebut. Bilixi was right, he was not a true bladesman. In the declined heavenly saber pavilion, there were only saber techniques and tempering of the heart. However, Xiao Chen had not learned about the cultivation of a bladesman. It was like Yu Chenxi said, the heavenly saber pavilion did not have any true bladesmen. They only had cultivators who used sabers. When Bilixi saw that Xiao Chen remained silent, he continued, "What's wrong? Did I hit the mark? Don't worry, I am friends with old Sun. I will get him to spar with you another day to let you experience his saber intent." I guarantee that you will successfully cross the threshold of a bladesman. However, you have to give me the latter half of the firmament body tempering art first. Or at the very least, give me 3 more layers. What do you think? Xiao Chen laughed hoarsely. This Bilixi was really persistence. He was solely focused on the firmament body tempering art. With everything he said, he could shift the topic toward that. It seems like he would pester Xiao Chen throughout this journey. Brat, don't stay silent. Let me tell you, with the help of the bloody bladesman, the time you will require to comprehend saber intent will significantly lessen. Seeing that Xiao Chen ignored him, Bilixi continued to pester him from behind. This continued until Xiao Chen reached the harbor. Even then, Bilixi did not stop. Xiao Chen had not expected a big, tall man like Bilixi to be so naggy. No matter how strong Xiao Chen's mind was, there was this housefly buzzing behind him. It frustrated him. More importantly, he could not slap this housefly to death. Xiao Chen stopped walking and asked helplessly, I say, old Bai, we have already reached the harbor. Can you stop for a while? When Bilixi saw that Xiao Chen was somewhat flustered, he smiled happily. He said, what's wrong? Feeling frustrated? Let me tell you, this is just the beginning. You ripped me off at the inn, causing me to lose many years of savings, 1,000-year-old snow ginseng, and news of a medial-grade secret treasure. In the end, all I got was half of a secret manual. Furthermore, it is only a copy. Since I can't kill you, I will irritate you until you hand over the remaining half of the copy. Xiao Chen finally got to see what shameless truly meant. Furthermore, an old man taught him the meaning. That's up to you. I will not give you the latter half of the firmament body tempering art before I obtained the secret treasure. Greenwind Island's harbor was extremely busy. At one glance, there was an endless number of merchant ships from the merchant associations of the various nations. Numerous people crowded the entire harbor. They all squeezed and pushed their way through the crowd to get to where they wanted to. However, all the merchant ships were setting out for the boundless sea. Xiao Chen searched for a long time but could not find any returning to the continent. Bilixi said, Brat, stop looking. The merchant ships returning from the boundless sea and heading back to the continent can only be found at night. Xiao Chen felt doubtful as he asked, why? Bilixi glanced at Xiao Chen with great disdain. He said, you youths understand nothing. This is the rule of Greenwind Island's harbor. There are too many ships here. In the past, there were many incidents of the departing ships and incoming ship crashing into each other and sinking to the bottom of the sea. Hence, they regulated the timing of when the ships could enter by where they were going. Xiao Chen glanced at the several thousand colossal merchant ships. He could somewhat understand what Bilixi said. This world was different from his previous world. The ships here were much larger and numerous. If there were no way to give directions conveniently, they would be challenging to manage. Xiao Chen looked up and saw that it was already dusk. It would soon be dark. So he decided to wait. Xiao Chen searched for a place with fewer people and sat. Then, he took out a book from the universe ring to read. This was the Compendium of Ancient Secret Treasures Xiao Chen had obtained in the past. Too many people filled the harbor, there was no way for him to cultivate here. However, he could not afford to waste too much time. Using the time to understand more about secret treasure, as well as increase his knowledge of famous secret treasures, was not a waste at all. Brat, what is so interesting about reading? Let's talk about body tempering. I can tell that you have already gained certain achievements in tempering the body. Bilixi quickly followed and placed his axe on the ground before plopping his butt down next to Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen could not be bothered about him. Regardless of the topic, Bilixi would soon shift it back to the firmament body tempering art. He had already experienced this several times on the way here. Based on what I can tell, your pure physical strength is only about 100,000 kilograms of force. There is still much room for improvement. How about this? Give me the 7th layer of the firmament body tempering art, just 1 layer, and I will help you to raise your physical strength by 25,000 kilograms of force. Indeed, after Bilixi spoke a single sentence, he turned the topic back to the firmament body tempering art. Chen smiled faintly and did not plan to answer him. Even if Bilixi's offer were very tempting, Chen would ignore it, burying himself in the compendium of ancient secret treasures. Time slowly went by, and as darkness had almost completely fallen, Chen suddenly heard footsteps walking toward him. This person had not hidden his aura at all as he locked it onto Chen as he walked over. Chen put the book away. He quickly stood and turned around. Bilixi's reaction was not slow either. He turned at the same time as Chen. That person had a sword hanging from his waist. His hair was long and flowing. He looked very handsome, and his aura was sharp. He unabashedly revealed his sharpness. His aura was sharper than swords or sabers. Chen felt suspicious as he watched the person walk towards him. He muttered to himself, "Why hasn't Jin Wuji left yet?" Bilixi whispered, "That looks like that what's his name from the Heavenly Sword Gate. He seemed pretty strong, your friend." Bilixi's tone obviously carried mockery. Chen shook his head and said, "No." Jin Wuji was already less than 100 meters away. He could hear Bilixi's words clearly. Although he felt angry at that person's intentional mockery, he knew who this person was and did not wish to say more. Jin Wuji focused his gaze on Chen and asked sullenly, "Where is Yu Chenxi? Has she left?" Chen frowned slightly. Why does Jin Wuji's tone feel so aggressive? I do not recall offending him. However, when Chen heard Yu Chenxi's name, he figured everything out. He made a guess and smiled helplessly. It looked like the first bit of trouble originating from Yu Chenxi had found Chen. Chen ignored Jin Wuji's tone and said calmly, "After she obtained the daybreak flower, she returned with the higher-ups of the Supreme Sky Sect." Jin Wuji's expression changed greatly. He asked in shock, "You helped her obtain the daybreak flower? Damn it. I should have been the one to help Yu Chenxi to pick the daybreak flower. This fellow has spoiled yet another of my plans." After a while, Jin Wuji calmed himself, thinking, this person has a friendship with Su Xiao. There are currently many people here. I will let him off for now. Just remember this, regardless of what you did, Yu Chenxi is not a person some white-robed bladesman can dream about. Don't let me see you with Yu Chenxi again. Jin Wuji's expression turned sinister as he muttered coldly to himself, otherwise, the Heavenly Sword Gate will make it very difficult for you to survive in this world. Don't offend those you can't afford to offend. Who are you, spoiling my plans over and over? Stop and look at your status first.